Should Diego Pavia keep his mouth shut when it comes to talking trash to the Tide? Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And today's episode brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward Mazda Move and Be Moved. All right, let's dive into it. The biggest story to come out, the last couple of hours or so, coming from Diego Pavia over at Vanderbilt. Obviously, the big anticipated game between the number 16 ranked Vanderbilt Commodores and the number 10 Alabama Crimson Tide. Of course, the two teams met last year in Nashville and ended up being one of the biggest upsets in recent years in SEC history. And Pavia and the Commodores, they'll be going on the road this time around, but upset still very much on their mind. And the Crimson Tide fan base, they know what to expect from this Vanderbilt team, right? I mean, they got their attention last year pulling off the upset. But on three's Chris Lowe, speaking with Diego Pavia this week. Pavia said he knows what he's walking into there at Bryant-Denny Stadium, saying, quote, "The crowd, I think, is going to be a big factor in the game, but we just got to play within the white lines. If we do that, if we play our game, it won't be close." Look, there's that fine line between cockiness or confidence and arrogance, right? Like, I believe in myself. I'm very confident that we are going to go into Alabama and win the game. But then, if we just do what we do, just roll in there and, no sweat off our back, we're just going to do what we normally do and it won't be close. I mean, that's where it comes across a little bit as arrogance. If you're Vanderbilt, fan of Vanderbilt, you want Pavia to be confident in himself. And look, Vanderbilt has been awesome so far this season. I mean, we've talked about it earlier this week. I mean, 49 points per game they're averaging offensively. I think they're going to score points. But on the flip side, I think Alabama, we can't ignore what they've done the last couple of weeks. And I get it. It was at home against a bad Louisiana Monroe team and a bad Wisconsin team, but they got their groove back after that week one loss at Florida State. And then what they did last week to go on the road and win at Georgia, I think we're seeing a different Alabama team right now. And so I think this game, we're in Nashville. Maybe I could buy into Alabama making some mistakes again and maybe losing a game or, being a close game or whatever. But I just, I don't know if Pavia wants to be making the statements. Again, the quote again, the crowd, I think, is going to be a big factor in the game. So he's giving a hat tip to the Alabama fans. But he said, we just got to play within the white lines. If we do that, if we play our game, it won't be close. I think the big challenge is going to be Vanderbilt's defense, which has been pretty good so far. Can they slow down Ty Simpson? And that's the other side of this is Ty Simpson has been really good as of late. And, we told you the quote from Ty Simpson earlier this week where he said, quote, "I felt how it was last year. The mentality of our locker room this week is we remember last year. What are we going to do about it? Even though it's not about last year, it's about us. We're not going to make the same mistake again." So again, which quote do you think is more challenging, from Diego Pavia or Ty Simpson? Diego Pavia saying, if we do what we do, we play our game, it won't be close. And Ty Simpson saying, look, we remember last year, what are we going to do about it? Even though it's not about last year, it's about us. We're not going to make the same mistake again. So, look, top 25 matchup. I think Game Day made the right choice to go here. I've seen some folks like Roddy Jones at ESPN, who's an ACC guy, right? A lot of the ACC folks upset that, they didn't cover Miami versus Florida State. Look, FSU should have won last Friday night. They had a chance. Beat Virginia, who's been terrible the last decade plus, beat Virginia, and it was going to be a monster, two top 10 team matchup between Florida State and Miami. Florida State lost. Vanderbilt won. Alabama won. That's why game day waited all day long to make their decision. It was very late Saturday night that the news came out that they were going to be going to College game day, would be going to Tuscaloosa. This is the big matchup, and I think the TV ratings will show it. Not to say nobody's going to watch Florida State Miami. I think it will be a highly rated game, but I just think Alabama-Vanderbilt is going to have higher ratings. Now, look, Vanderbilt's got to play a closer game, right? Like, if this game gets out of hand in the first quarter, maybe the ratings do go out the window. But I just think it's going to be a highly contested game. But to me, it's advantage Alabama than playing at home. All right. Kalen DeBoer talking with the media on Wednesday, sharing a positive update on safety Keon Sabb. He had to leave the game against Georgia after being injured on a hit against Georgia wide receiver Zachariah Branch. And while he wasn't able to finish the game, Sabb is going to play. Kalen DeBoer saying, quote, his volume has continued to increase working through fall camp. I think he's getting better and better each week. More comfortable just physically. I thought he played his best football here as of late. And so Keon Sabb going to go against Vanderbilt. Of course, like we said, tough Vanderbilt offense. Pavia having thrown for 1,200 yards, 13 touchdowns, rushed for so far almost 300 yards and 2 more touchdowns. And they dropped 55 against Utah State. So one more interesting note here on Diego Pavia. I don't know if you guys caught this, but Johnny Manziel mentioned to On Three's Chris Lowe that he is mentoring Diego Pavia. Of course, Manziel now 32 years old, former first-round pick. Says he's helping Pavia and others so that they make good on their dreams in a way that he failed to do so. Manziel saying, quote, I'm like, learn from my mistakes, brother. Learn from Johnny. Don't be Johnny off the field. Look, Diego Pavia he's been vocal. He's been cocky at times, but he's backed it up, right? I mean, like, look at what Vanderbilt did last year. Look at what they're doing this year. But, you know, so far we haven't had Diego Pavia. He hasn't overslept at the Manning Passing Academy. He hasn't signed a bunch of autographs, you know, against NCAA rules. Be like, or learn from Johnny's mistakes, brother. I think it's a pretty good line from Johnny Manziel. But, you know, no late night romps over to Vegas. Keep your head on straight. But Vanderbilt 5-0 for the first time since 2008, heading into this Week 6 clash with Alabama, and the second time ever that Vandy has been featured on College game day. I had somebody ask me that earlier this week. They said, when was the last time? It was 2008. Last time Vandy was on game day. I want to say it was Auburn. I believe that's right. But a few more notes on this game. Ty Simpson, I said this, I think, earlier in the week. He's no longer, the moniker of game manager. I think he's more of a gamer now than a game manager because he's making plays out there. He has not thrown an interception yet. That's incredible. I had to go back and look. Who's the last Alabama quarterback through, first 4 weeks of the season as a starter to not throw an interception? I think it was Tua. My numbers are right. Now the Tua thing got weird because it was Jalen Hurts and it was Tua. And then, but anyway, I think Tua is the last Alabama quarterback to go this many games to start a career and not have an interception. So hopefully I didn't jinx Ty Simpson for his sake that he's going to come out and throw a bunch of picks this week. But the other big thing here is Kalen DeBoer has not lost a home game yet at Bryant-Denny Stadium at Alabama. Of course, all their losses last year came on the road at Tennessee, at Vandy, at Oklahoma. They won the LSU game, and then they lost the bowl game, neutral field against Michigan. And then they opened this season with the loss at Florida State. So, look, at home, Bryant-Denny, they got the big win over Georgia last year there. So, Kalen DeBoer doing his thing at home. Let's see if he can keep it up. I did mention it would be funny if DeBoer starts his career at Alabama 2-0 against Kirby Smart, but 0-2 against Clark Lee. I don't think that's going to be the case, but it would be pretty funny. All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. When we return, Texas on the road at Florida. A few reasons why this could be a very interesting matchup. We'll discuss that coming up next. Back to the squad in just a second, but the NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you do not want to miss right now. New customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, you put down $5, and if it hits, you will unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And you're going to love everything FanDuel has to offer. Of course, all the big games happening across the SEC. You want to get in on any of those lines? They got them up there for you right now at FanDuel, and they give you so many different ways to play. You want to build a parlay? I like to do a little parlay action with some of the underdogs each week in the SEC. Get some big upsets going. You get two big upsets, you're going to get a big payout. You can do some player props. You can even follow the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something extra riding on the action. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. That is over at FanDuel.com. Get in there today. Hey, this episode also brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood the neighborhood. These are the places that become an extension of your home, whether it's the sports bar dedicated to your team's fan base, the spot with the best wings in town for game day, or that beloved local chain that's been rooted in your community for years. These businesses are what bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. And of course, we got some great businesses in your neighborhood, like Goodfellas Distillery in Lexington, Truman's Bar and Grill in Como, Jack's Ice Cream in Fayetteville, or Eileen's Colossal Cookies in Norman. All those places are using Square, and Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. And you can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square will see you in the neighborhood. I roll along here to Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Shout out to our everydayers. And we got a big one coming up this weekend. It is the Florida Gators playing host to the Texas Longhorns and Arch Manning. And Billy Napier talking with the media, talking about having to play Arch. And by the way, this is the first time since 1940 that these two teams will play each other in Gainesville. So they've just not played a ton. You know, there's the whole storyline of DJ Lagway. He was Mr. Texas football in 2023, and I believe digging into it, I don't think the Longhorns even recruited him. Texas A&M was in on him. They were coming after him, but Longhorns not on their radar. So he ends up at Florida, and he was pretty firm. You know, I think even before his commitment, hey, I'm going to end up going to Florida, because he really liked Billy Napier and all that. But going up against, you know, being a Texas kid from just outside the Houston area, getting to go up against the Longhorns. He wanted to play in that game last year when it was in Austin. He had a lot of friends and family that were going to be in attendance, but he was injured and he couldn't play in that game. So anyway, this will be an interesting one. But ahead of this game, Billy Napier was asked about Arch Manning's performance this year and some of the criticism that he's been receiving from the media and other folks. And Billy Napier said, I think in general, quarterback in particular is the hardest position in all of sports, and you're dependent on others. There's a level of detail and the precision that's required to play really, really good offense at a high level, especially earlier in the season when you play against good competition. So you couldn't have a much more challenging game than Ohio State on the road in the opener for a first-time starter. Of course, in that game, Manning completed just 56% of his passes for 170 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. And after they played three inferior opponents, San Jose State, UTSA, and Sam Houston, or I'm sorry, UTEP. Was it UTEP? Whoever it was. It was three really crappy teams. I want to look at those teams' records. I mean, they are abysmal. And Arch has been, you know, he's been good at times. He's been poor at times in those games against bad opponents. So we'll come back to more on Arch in just a second, because some of the folks on ESPN had something interesting to say about him. But let's jump into Florida really quick, because DJ Lagway, this is a big game for him. Obviously, the Florida offense has been struggling. And, of course, Texas is 3-1 coming to Gainesville for their SEC opener. By the way, first road SEC start for Arch Manning. But for DJ Lagway, they're getting back their big 5-star wide receiver, Dallas Wilson, who has not played yet as a freshman. And he was the star of their spring game. I mean, set a spring game record for receptions and receiving yards. And I get it. It's a spring game, but it was still pretty damn impressive to do that, right? I mean, if it was so easy to do, why don't people do it every spring game? But a rough month of September for Lagway. Obviously, the 5-pick game against LSU, the late loss to USF. It's just been, and then the offense doing absolutely nothing in the loss to Miami. Their defense has been really good, but the offense has been bad. And DJ Lagway's QBR on the season sitting at 46.9. But Billy Napier said, look, I think he improves with each full rep that he gets. We obviously had an open date last week. It presented an opportunity for him to get more work in. Obviously, we know he's had a very challenging offseason in terms of time missed, and we're trying to get him caught up. He said, every time I take a snap or play a play or process, ball comes off my hand, self-correcting, improving the process in terms of communication and everything else. So he said that there have been challenges that he's faced with Lagway. So the challenge for us is trying to get him ramped up. I think this is the 6th week of real practice. So he's working his tail off. I think with each rep he takes, he's getting more and more comfortable. The tough part with Lagway, right? I mean, he had the shoulder issue throughout much of the spring where he wasn't throwing. And then even in the summer camp, working in the fall, he was in the walking boot at one point, and they said it was just out of precaution and all this. So it's just been, he's missed a lot of practice reps and a lot of new pieces on this team. J. Michael Sturdivant coming over at wide receiver, some of the new freshman pieces and all that. So I do think Dallas Wilson's going to help. They got to get a run game going. Look, Jaden Ball, I was so excited to see what he was going to do this year. That offensive line has massively underachieved for the Gators this year. So they got to do a better job, particularly. But I think Dallas Wilson will help open this offense a little bit. The problem is Texas got a great secondary. They really do. Michael Taff and company back there, they can slow down the passing game. So this will be a big test for Lagway in Florida. They got to show a sign of life on offense. Like, I get it. It's Texas is a good defense, but you got to show a sign of life on offense. All right. One more on the flip side. We talked about Arch Manning, Louis Riddick over at ESPN. They were on Get Up, and he was the topic of Arch Manning came up, and they were talking about the Longhorns and, obviously making his first road SEC start in the Swamp this weekend. And Louis Riddick, he's going to be on the call for the game. He said he wants to see Arch Manning operate with a cleaner release. He said, I want to see consistency as far as technique. He said Jordan Rodgers has talked about his feet. You can see it sometimes. People get square and parallel. The ball goes down in the dirt. Arch tries to change his arm angle sometimes, and it doesn't look natural to him. This isn't Louis Riddick saying this, but I've seen a few people say, how many quarterbacks these days are trying to emulate what Patrick Mahomes does and will throw balls sideways sometimes? Like, only Patrick Mahomes could do that. Nobody else can do that. Stop trying to replicate Patrick Mahomes. But it's like that thing where when Steph Curry got popular, right? Like every young kid was like, I'm going to shoot 1,000,000 threes from half court. Like, no, don't do that. Only Steph Curry can do that. It works for him, not for everybody out there. But anyway, Riddick went on to say, if I'm Florida, every time I see Arch get flushed out of the pocket and he's trying to throw on the run, that's just not his thing. I would not want him to sit in the pocket and get comfortable off of play action where he could become a rhythm thrower. You let him do that with the weapons they have, he's probably going to tear you up. I'm sending the house after him. I'm making him move, making him throw on the move, because I think he struggles in doing that. This could be a much tougher test than maybe what people think for Texas. Texas still sitting at about a touchdown favorite, according to FanDuel. That kickoff will be 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern on ESPN. Yeah, it's an interesting thought. If you're Florida, your defense has been so stout and so good so far this season. Send the house, send pressure, and force Arch to make those throws and see if he can complete those passes on the run. And if he does, more power to him. But be very interesting to see how that game plays out. I do think it's going to be a tougher test for Texas than maybe we were initially going to give them credit for, because the initial reaction is, oh, Florida stinks. Texas is going to have no trouble going in there. Well, Texas hasn't exactly looked like a world beater so far, and hasn't really been tested other than week 1 against Ohio State. So we're going to find out what Texas is all about. All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. More squad action coming your way in a second, but first, Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, and with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else, from footwork to breathwork, athletes, they sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every model of vehicle. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from the smooth handling to the intuitive controls. And with their all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Just like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. This episode also brought to you by our friends at Game Time. And look, guys, you know college football is back, and we're super excited. From the tailgates to the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's nothing like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping up at checkout. That's why we use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Pull up the Game Time app right now. In just a couple taps, you're going to see some amazing deals. I'm talking your favorite college football games as low as $25. The app makes it super simple. You can see the exact view from your seat before you buy. And honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way you're going to buy tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege. You can get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, roll along here. Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Chris Gordy here with you, and wanted to hit on a couple other tidbits going on around the SEC. Remember to tune in tomorrow. We'll have our celebrity guest picker segment. We'll be making our picks, getting ready for the games this weekend. But a few more notes as we roll around the SEC. Brian Kelly talking about the health of his quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier. They got a big reality check this past weekend and a loss to Ole Miss in a 24-19 loss. And a lot of folks looking at the film of Garrett Nussmeier saying, he don't look good. He don't look healthy. He don't look like his former self. And many have been wondering about the lingering abdominal injury that he was dealing with. And, is it more severe than maybe they had suggested? And reports even were circulating this week. Perhaps could Nussmeier need surgery or something like that? Well, Brian Kelly was asked about the rumors circling his quarterback during the Wednesday teleconference, and he shut down any speculation regarding Nussmeier going under the knife. He said, quote, "That's misinformation, not based on any facts. It's silly that it's out there. Early on, he had an ab strain, not a core injury, and it's been slow to heal. He's on the backside of that, and he's getting better." So, look, he may not need surgery, as Brian Kelly said, but it's clear he has not been the same, that he's going to have to play much, much better than he has so far this season. And that's the big question is, Brian Kelly said a couple weeks ago, when we get to the bye week, if we just get to the bye week, he'll get the rest that he needs. Well, okay, you're at your bye week. It's time to get Garrett Nussmeier healthy, and he better look better down the stretch, because LSU's going to have some big, big games coming up. And look, they can drop one more, but if you drop 2-3 more, the season's over. And, well, you get what I'm saying. No playoff hopes for LSU. Season's not over, but get ready for an Outback Bowl or something like that. All right, other news going on around the conference. How about over at Texas A&M? Mike Elko talking with the media ahead of their big game against Mississippi State, trying to defend that Mississippi State offense. And Mike Elko telling reporters, quote, "Yeah, look, their spread offense is something I've compared it a lot this week to the modern version of the triple option. They spread you sideline to sideline, and it's a challenge. They force you to cover the whole field vertically and horizontally." Of course, Texas A&M moved to 4-0 last week with a 16-10 win over Auburn. And it was the best defensive game that Texas A&M's played all season. They've given up a lot of points and a lot of yardage to teams, but this is going to be very interesting, because Mississippi State gave Tennessee all they could handle last week at Starkville, with that game going into overtime. But A&M, they looked, the offense didn't look as good last week, but it looked really good through the first couple weeks. So do we get maybe a shootout between A&M and Mississippi State in College Station? I had to pass this along because I saw this come across social media, just kind of a crazy note. And look, Mississippi State almost got their first SEC win in a long time against Tennessee just last Saturday. But this tweet was from yesterday. It said, days since winning an SEC game. Mississippi State, 711 days. Texas A&M, 4. How about over at Arkansas? They are moving on from Sam Pittman, obviously. Bobby Petrino taking over as the interim. And Pete Thamel on College Football Live this week saying, I would like to think of this as basically a $1.5 million audition for Bobby Petrino. He said Sam Pittman's buyout is very complex, but basically if they had waited and Arkansas had continued to lose, they would have paid him $3 million less as part of his buyout. Thamel reported the university negotiated with Pittman's agent, Jimmy Sexton, to, quote, cut the difference of Pittman's buyout in the middle. So he said, look, the offense has been juiced up. The defense has been abysmal for Arkansas, and Bobby Petrino would have to earn it if he was going to win this job on the field. That's going to be the tough part, is they are, how do you quantify this? Because their schedule is brutal for Arkansas. So, if you get 2 wins down the stretch, I mean, I don't know. That's going to be what's really tough, is how does Bobby Petrino earn this job as the interim? We shall see. All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Hey, a reminder, you can catch college football kickoff every Thursday throughout the season only on Fire TV. Gary Patterson, Jesse Holley, and Drake Toll previewing the weekend to come here on Around College Football. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.